No person ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and they are not the same person. Hello and welcome. Welcome to Input English. That quote is from Heraclitus, an ancient Greek poet, philosopher, and that is something that was taught to me many years ago. The concept is the only constant in life is change. That quote, that one cannot step twice into the same river, makes a great deal of sense as we go through life. You either have or will notice examples of this that unfold right before your eyes. When I was a college student, I spent 4 years on a college campus, and it was pretty much unchanging during that time. I saw the same people every day. I went to the same buildings every day. The landscaping was the same. It was very consistent during that period of 4 years. But then I left that school having graduated and carried on with life. Years later, I had opportunity to come back to that same campus and drive around just for reminiscence sake. It was strikingly different. The first thing that was obvious was they had built some buildings and torn down some other structures. Things were different. The traffic patterns were different. They had changed the streets a little bit. The other thing that quickly became apparent is that the people I knew on that campus were gone. Having graduated a few years earlier, I knew no one on that campus. This was a recurring theme. Later, after completing my graduate studies, I left Philadelphia. It was probably 5 years or more later that I had an opportunity to return to the campus of the university and the neighborhood where we lived. Again, it was strikingly different. Now, having had this experience with my college campus, I was quick to identify the fact that I didn't know anybody on this university campus. No one. The buildings were similar. There were some changes, but the big difference was the people. They were gone. I'm not upset by this. I'm just aware of it. As I put this episode together in my head, I started to realize that change, or the lack of change, is not evenly distributed in this world. There are things that tend to change very rapidly. There are things that tend to change incredibly slowly. If one were to visit the Grand Canyon 2 times, 20 years apart, you would see little or no difference in those 2 observations, even though they're separated by decades. If you visit a school on 2 episodes only 5 years apart, you will notice massive changes in the people. The people come and go. And then in between those things, we have the things built by people that are a little more fluid. What do I mean? Well, the Empire State Building looks much the same as it did when I was a child. I don't see big changes in that. But the businesses in the community around us are coming and going as times change. Your favorite restaurant is great, but unfortunately it went out of business. Now, we lost a lot of businesses during the pandemic because the economic stress wiped them out. But businesses come and go. What I observe is that human behavior is fairly quick to change. Things that humans build tend to be fairly quick to change. And then there are some things that we build which are designed to be very durable, like huge buildings or the Golden Gate Bridge. And change in that area is very, very slow. Going back to our last phrase in the quote, and they are not the same person. We should not lose sight of the fact that the quote is not just about the river. It's very much about us. We are on a journey. You are taking a very active role in changing yourself. You are converting yourself into somebody who speaks English. You're putting in effort. And I have to marvel at that. There's something really thrilling about taking charge, taking responsibility, and making changes in ourselves to adapt to an ever-changing world. So this is actually why I like that quote. It's tempting to focus on the changing of the river. The more useful side of that quote for me is the fact that we are ever-changing and that we can either accept what happens or we can take an active role in carving our future, changing ourselves, and adapting to an ever-changing world. The first time I read that quote from Heraclitus, it sounded kind of melancholy, like the good old days are gone. And now, looking at it through a different perspective, I find it a very upbeat and positive quote because we can make a lot of decisions on how we're going to adapt to that ever-changing world. Heraclitus puts us on notice that we should adapt. We should look for opportunities to adapt because our old patterns of behavior aren't going to work. So that's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I invite comments below, and I hope you join us in future videos. See you soon.